All right, what's going on? This is the first episode of the Take His Whistle podcast. First real episode, I should say. We've done a couple practice episodes, kind of just working out the kinks. But my name is Parker. I am um, excited about this, starting this whole new process of things, and I am also accompanied by one of my best friends, Josh.
Hello.
And this week, we're going to do a couple different things throughout the different podcasts, different episodes. This week, we're strictly going to be talking about college football, kind of just what's going on in the college football world, um, and what to come as well. Um, so, Josh, you got anything to kind of add before we start this thing?
Yeah, as we're recording this, as you know, Parker, there is a Thursday night football game going on in the NFL. So we could probably provide some updates through that game. When this episode is out, the final results will be final in that game, obviously, but you'll be able to hear some live reactions to the game. I know Parker is currently in a keeper league, I think it's called, right? A survivor
Survivor League,
league.
yeah.
And he actually bet on the Commanders, and they are down 10 right now with 9 to go in the fourth quarter. So we'll see how that pans
The
out.
Bears can't win a game in over a year until I bet on them. So
But one thing I will add though is I don't actually know if you mentioned it. I kind of blanked out, but what we're going to be doing is we're going to have college football episodes, and then we're going to have NFL episodes, pretty much previewing what's going on in that current week, what happened in the last week before then, and then we're just kind of uh, moving in slowly, but we'll figure everything out. Like Parker said, working out the kinks and everything. So we'll get it down soon.
yes, that is true. That is true. And also, I don't know if my audio might be a little rough right now, and it might be like that for a few weeks. Still trying to work out the best way to get my voice out there in the clearest, um, less scratchy way possible. Um, so yeah, definitely some changes to come. This is not going to be perfect, but um, I'm also just really excited to get this thing started.
Yeah, so I guess to start it off, Parker, let's talk about last week a little bit. What topic do you want to first start off as far as last week goes?
Well, there was a lot. There was I know speaking at our last practice episode that we did, we kind of had some points that we talked about that kind of changed our perspective of this past week. Really changed our perspective of what we talked about. The first one I would like to talk about is Alabama. They went into Mississippi State and absolutely kicked some ass. Covered their spread by way more than people thought they would. Um, Again, still not really much quarterback play. He went Melrose went 10 for 12 for 164 yards. Um, he did use his legs a little bit more. He had 2 touchdowns on 69 rushing yards. But as far as that dominating quarterback position that we've grown accustomed to in Alabama, we have yet to see that still going into which would now be, I believe, week 6. Still no quarterback to be found in Alabama.
Yeah, I think one part that I want to point out, as far as last week goes, I mean, I think I said this in our practice episode last week, but Mississippi State's kind of in shambles right now. You know, a lot of stuff happened with that team in the offseason with Mike Leach, obviously the unfortunate passing. And that team is kind of just not good right now. They're kind of in a down season right now. They're actually probably one of the worst teams in the SEC. Not just the SEC West, I think they're in, right? Am I right
Yes.
about that? Yeah, they're not just one of the worst teams, if not the worst in the SEC West, but they're actually just straight up one of the worst, if not the worst in the SEC. So I think that game was kind of an easy game for Alabama. I think their real test is this week when they go into Kyle Field against Texas A&M. And now Texas A&M is 4-1 and they're not ranked. Same record as Alabama, whereas Alabama's ranked 11th. Now, the interesting thing that I want to point out is that Connor Wigman did go down last week, or it might have been a couple weeks ago. That's Texas A&M's starting quarterback, so they're going to have their backup, Max Johnson, coming into play, who I've heard really good things about. And then on top of that, as a Louisville fan, Ruben Owens, who, for Cards fans listening, as everyone knows, decommitted from Louisville around the time that Scott Satterfield left Louisville for Cincinnati, is the same time that Ruben Owens, former 5-star recruit, decommitted from Louisville and committed to Texas A&M, which completely makes sense. Texas native, Texas A&M is known to run the ball a lot, and he is shining for Texas A&M as a true freshman right now. But I think that's Alabama's first true test, but first true test since the Texas game. And I think this game will show a lot for Alabama and Texas A&M.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I know Texas A&M, they do have that loss, but if you look, it was against Miami at Miami. Miami's not a bad football team whatsoever. They then go on to pretty convincingly beat Auburn and then kind of beat the brakes off of Arkansas at Arkansas. So this Texas A&M team, like you said, is no pushover at all. And without that, with the quarterback issues Alabama's had, it could be a long day for Roll Tide.
Yeah, and the Alabama Texas A&M game is always a good game to watch. It's a very underrated rivalry in my opinion. Um, I think the rivalry between the coaches, with Jimbo Fisher and Nick Saban, I think it adds another layer on top of it. But I think I just think it's always a good game. It kind of always has been. It's been a series that Alabama has dominated in past years because it's Alabama and everyone knows how their past teams have been. But this year, honestly, it's a toss-up. I really can't guarantee who would win that game off the top of my head right now. I guess we'll find out who I think will win later on in the episode.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. One thing I do want to point out about this Alabama team is um, their defense. I don't know if you, Josh, watched any even highlights of that Mississippi State game. And like you said, I know it's Mississippi State, so you got to take it with a grain of salt. But their defense looked terrific. Oh my gosh, their defense looks so good. I know me being a Kentucky fan, I'm nervous about, especially with our kind of can be shaky offense, to play a team like Alabama that if you give them the chance, they are going to take full advantage of it and they're going to make your quarterback look stupid. Will Rogers had went 15 for 27, only 107 yards with 3 picks. Just this Alabama team looked really good defensively. And so that's something else to maybe they don't have the offense this year to carry them like they have the past few years, but I think this year it really could be a defensive team for Alabama that holds them, I guess, even top 10 in college football this year.
Yeah, you kind of said it right there. Their defense, I think, is what is holding that team together because, as we both said in the practice episode, the offense definitely isn't the one carrying that team, especially not this year. So I think the defense plays a heavy part in their record this year. But the Texas A&M offense is it's an electric offense. They can be an electric offense at times, and I think the Texas A&M offense against that Alabama defense will be a very good matchup to watch.
Definitely, definitely. Now, guess changing over to the team that embarrassed Alabama, Texas. Josh, did you expect Texas to beat Kansas the way they beat them? Not just beating them as in a close, good fought game. It was an ass whooping. Were you expecting that at all?
Well, so yes and no, because when you look at Kansas and what they did last year, I think they went 9-3 last year, and now I think that was their first loss against Texas. That's a good Kansas team.
Hmm.
Like I don't know if you're noticing this, but all of a sudden, these quote basketball schools are becoming very good at football. And Kansas is one of them. And the way Kansas has been able to turn around their program in the last 2 years, as far as last year and this year, I mean, they've looked really good this year. And I mean, and here's where I come in and say, yes, I did expect it. Because when you look at Texas, I mean, I don't want to say Texas is back yet just because it's only been half of 1 year. But Texas looks like the best team in the country right now, if not the best team in the country. I know people like to say Georgia. I know people like to say Florida State. But Texas right now, I think if you put them up against Georgia and Florida State, I think you could see a Texas team going 2-0 against those two
I
teams.
100% agree with you, and that was one of my things I want to talk about next. This Georgia, I might get hate for it, but I don't think this Georgia team's as good. Now they're good. They're good. They're still Georgia, but I don't think they're as good as people want and wish they will be. They've had a couple close calls already this season that you're like, one possession could have changed the entire game. And just looking off their schedule, there is a maybe 3 minutes of football played that this Georgia team could have been 3-2 going into Saturday. They easily should
Yeah.
have really lost to South Carolina. Then the same exact thing. They should have lost to Auburn as well. Just a little bit of luck and just things going their way is the only reason that team doesn't have two losses already.
I mean, yeah, we could definitely be looking at a two-loss Georgia right now coming into week 6 very easily. Um, but however, when you look at this Georgia team, I think there's kind of some of the same question marks as some other top teams, as Alabama, for example. You know, they have a first year starter in Carson Beck. They haven't really played anybody yet, so we haven't really able to be sorry, we haven't really been able to see Carson Beck's full potential. And when you look at that team and you look at last week against Auburn, I mean, it wasn't Carson Beck's number that they called. It was the best damn player in college football, Brock goddamn Bowers, that they relied on to win that Auburn football game. I mean, like, it's kind of like Brock Bowers is just kind of making that team good still. Now, I know that's not true. I know Georgia is good all across the board, obviously. I'm not saying Brock Bowers is why that team is still ranked number 1. Obviously, that's not true. But what I am saying is that he is obviously a big, big, huge part in what is keeping that team still good.
Do you think Brock Bowers is better than Kyle Pitts? Oh, not now, but when Kyle Pitts was in college.
Yes.
Really?
I think I think Brock Bowers is one of, if not the best tight end of all time in college
Wow.
football.
See, because I feel like whenever Kyle Pitts got drafted, they were very similar things were being said about him. He's a generational talent. You're not going to find that big of a body that moves that fast and is that strong. And they hyped up Kyle Pitts to be like, yo, this tight end right here, every team needs a tight end like Kyle Pitts was. And obviously, he hasn't really. Well, I say that he hasn't done anything in the NFL fantasy wise. If you have him on your fantasy team, you're probably punching the air. But if you look at his stats, actually, his stats are unbelievable for as young as he is. But you would still say Brock Bowers.
They could be better. They
Oh
could be
yeah,
better.
they could. He's not a touchdown. He's not a touchdown guy, but he is that guy that you can throw it to him on the line of scrimmage, and he's gonna find a way to get you 15 yards. He's just that
Hmm.
type of player. But you would still say Bowers is better than him college wise.
I think I would. I think I would because when you look at their college careers and you look at their rise to fame, Kyle Pitts, I believe he was a junior and he declared for the draft. Am I right when I say that? Or was he a senior?
I don't know that off the top of my head.
Okay. I'm going to assume he was a junior, and I could be very wrong when I say that. But when you look at their rise to fame, Kyle Pitts really only had one season where he broke out and really showed the nation what he could be and what he is. Kind of in a similar situation as Anthony Richardson, except he did way better than Anthony Richardson did in college. But when you look at Brock Bowers, that kid has been good since his freshman year of college. And he's been in headlines since his freshman year of college. He's been lighting up the fucking box score since his freshman year of college. I mean, this kid, number 19 on Georgia, who wears an elbow pad on fucking both arms, I'm pretty sure, wears all the protection in the world. I mean, he's fast. He's big. He can block if he has to. And that's not something that you see from Kyle Pitts now, and it's not really something you saw from Kyle Pitts in college. Whereas if you look at Brock Bowers, you see a guy that can catch the ball, get you those 15 yards or more consistently, and he can make huge blocks for the running back, quarterback, receiver, whoever he needs to block for. You can count on Brock Bowers to make those blocks. So I think Brock Bowers is just an overall better player and prospect than Kyle Pitts, in my opinion. And I honestly I hold him on a pretty high pedestal. Obviously, as I just said, that I think he's probably the best or one of, if not the best, tight end of all time in college football.
Bold. That's bold. Very bold. Very bold.
And also, just to kind of back up my point a little bit, I mean, when you look at history of college football, you don't really see tight end production that much. But then when you look at Brock Bowers, you're seeing production from a player that is of a wide receiver caliber, but at the tight end position. You know
Right.
what I
Right.
mean?
Yes. 100%.
Like
100%.
it's just he's giving you production that we've just never seen before.
Yeah. Yeah. Um. Another thing I kind of wanted to touch on for this week, and I've told you, Josh, in the past that I'm fully on the bandwagon of Coach Prime. I absolutely love what he has done for not just Colorado, but the entire college football scene. Is it too early to call them frauds, or is it just unlucky tough matchups?
I think it's a little bit of both because you said, is it too early to call them frauds? No, but yes at the same time. And the reason it's a yes is because of that Travis Hunter injury and because of their scheduling and how tough it is. But then you look at the games that they've played, they have two losses. One of them, they just got absolutely boat raced by Oregon. I mean, that game was embarrassing for Colorado, like for
Right.
sure. But then you look at the USC game, and they came back in that game and only lost by 3. I believe I have to
Yeah.
double
No,
check
they
that real
lost by
quick.
7.
They lost by 7. They lost by a
Right.
touchdown, and they were down by multiple scores at one point in that game. And Shadur Sanders led that team practically single-handedly, throwing 5 touchdown
4 touchdowns,
passes.
one
To,
rushing.
to, okay, to only lose by 7. I mean, that doesn't look like a team that's a fraud to me. I think what's holding that team back is their defense, because their defense is allowing these points to happen. They're allowing these big gaps to happen in their scores, whereas the offense is really good. And we've seen that, obviously, off of last week, off of the weeks before Oregon. We've seen that offense perform well. But the defense is just so lackluster. And I can't call Colorado frauds when I look at that team and compare them to last year's Colorado team. I mean, last year they only won 1 game. They've already doubled that
Yeah,
this
that's
year.
actually pretty insane.
So
That's insane.
I mean, so what Coach Prime has been able to do for that program is unbelievable. What I will say is them storming the field against Nebraska. Come on, that's a little silly.
It is. It is. And a point to your defense point. when you allow Colorado State out of all teams, to put up 35 points on you and Colorado State made you guys go to double OT to win that game. That's got to say something. That I wonder if Coach Prime, well, I don't wonder. I know he's more of an offensive minded coach. He is really good as far as coaching his offensive players. Now, is it his son? Maybe it is. Is it because you might have one of the most electric college football players in Travis Hunter on your offensive team? Yes, that also could be a reason too. But you can tell that the defense has been neglected just a little bit more than their offense has, and it's showing. 42 points against TCU, 35 Colorado State, 42 to Oregon, 48 to USC. Yeah, I mean,
I mean, that's a trend you see in the Pac-12, though. I mean, so many Pac-12 teams just have horrible defenses. I mean, USC, for example, they lead that game by multiple scores, and then they allow them to come all the way back to only lose by a touchdown. I mean, like, how can you do that, USC? Like, and this was a thing last year too. USC's defense has not been good for multiple years, and then you look at that offense. It's the same way as Colorado. You flip the switch, and you look at that offense, and you have one of the best, if not the best, player in college football in Caleb Williams, and it's just like, what is going on here? And it's the same way with both of those programs. Now, when you look at Colorado, it's only been 1 year. So you kind of expect some flaws in that team. So I can kind of give them some leeway. But when I look at USC and I look at Lincoln Riley and the staff that he's had around him for multiple years, it's like, come on. Like, what's going on here? You're telling me that these 4-star, 5-star recruits that you're pulling in on defense aren't becoming elite talent on defense? Like, it's astonishing to me how bad that defense can be.
oh yeah, 100%, 100%, man. But just I love watching Caleb Williams play the game of football. I absolutely just I could sit there hours upon hours on my phone just watching highlights of him. He,
He's
oh my
unbelievable.
gosh, dude,
He's
he's so
unbelievable.
much fun to watch. I now coming from a Kentucky fan, Lamar Jackson was by far and probably will always be the most electric player in college football history. But man, I could sit here. Besides, I'm trying to think. Lamar Jackson, obviously. I think Johnny Manziel was really entertaining to watch. But as far as a quarterback in college football that was that electric and fun to watch, Caleb Williams might be up there for number 2.
I mean, when you're talking about somebody that can create his own pocket that's not the pocket, I mean, we see him scrambling out of the pocket and scrambling about 5 yards to the right, and then he'll just, like, let me rephrase this, because that didn't make sense. When you see a quarterback like Caleb Williams, who can just run around in circles, avoid the D line, these big ass 6'4", 300+ pound men just charging at you. When you can avoid that for 5 seconds or more, and then throw a pass downfield that can potentially be a touchdown, like he's done multiple times, I mean, that's unheralded talent. Like, that's just, it's astonishing to me, the things he can do. It's quite literally Patrick Mahomes put into a college player, which Patrick Mahomes, even, by the way, since I said his name, he showed some of that talent in college. He just wasn't on a team like USC.
And he really he wasn't you could see the diamond in the rough. He just wasn't polished yet in college.
He wasn't polished,
As I
yeah.
just checked the score of the Bears game, and the Bears have pulled away with it somehow. Last time I checked, it was a 10-point game. The Commanders had the ball at the 50-yard line, and now it's a 27-point game, and the Bears are about to score again with 2 minutes left in the game. I don't know how that's possible. Fuck the Commanders. Excuse my language.
All
Um, yeah.
right.
So
To move on from your upsetness, though, from this NFL game, let's talk about some let's let's talk about some of the games last week that maybe surprised us about how close they were, about how much of a blowout it was, and then after that, let's jump into this week and see what we can talk about this
Okay,
week.
yeah, for sure. Oregon State, Utah, which me and you both called it. We both said that Oregon State was going to win that game. Um, I didn't think it was going to be a 14-point win for Oregon State, but I think it was.
I mean,
I thought Utah was better than that. I should say. I thought they came out with absolutely zero energy and really just. I think they thought that their talent was better than them, and that was going to pull them to the win.
yeah, I mean, I am really high on Oregon State this year. I think DJ Ukulele was a great pickup from them. And after looking at Clemson and looking at Oregon State this year and comparing the two teams, DJ Ukulele, it was not your fault. It was not your fault. You are good. You are a good QB. And I'm not a Clemson fan, so I don't have to say sorry. But I think Clemson fans owe you an apology for shitting on you last year for how bad you were when you really it wasn't you.
I will say he has a pretty high turnover rate. I will say that he turns the ball over some very really I don't even know what the word is, unnecessary passes that he makes. Like he's already thrown 4 interceptions this year, a few fumbles if I'm not mistaken. So he does turn the ball over a decent amount more than he probably should. But he's got a cannon on him. He really does. His pocket presence is so good. He's one of the best in college football as far as having that internal clock in your head, knowing when to get out and when you need to get rid of that ball.
Yeah, I really like DJ. I think he's a very good QB. Um, so my next game I want to talk about. It's not the game that you think I might mention here. It's actually a different game than the one we witnessed, my friend. Um, Notre Dame Duke. I am shocked that Notre Dame only won by a touchdown. Or maybe not. Maybe I'm not shocked that they only won by a touchdown. Maybe I'm shocked that it was such a low scoring game. I kind of thought it would be a little bit of a higher scoring game. At least in my opinion, because I think both offenses are pretty good and but both defenses are better than I thought. So, that game was definitely closer than I thought, and Notre Dame barely winning. By the way, it took a last second touchdown for them to win that game.
Yeah, I didn't watch too much of this one, but what I did kind of read about and see, um, I think there's definitely a world where we need to give credit to Duke. Uh, and now I know Notre Dame went into Duke. This game was at Duke, so that's already tough. It's a tough game, but I think Duke was a little bit underrated going into the game. Nobody gave them as much as a shot as they had, and then to only lose by, like you said, a last second touchdown. I think that speaks volumes for Duke going forward.
Listen, here's what I'll say about that game. Notre Dame showed some cracks in their game in that game that Duke could have taken advantage of, but with Riley Leonard, their starting QB, who you may not know, Parker, um, Duke's starting QB Riley Leonard went down with an injury,
Yeah, he had the ankle injury,
and
right?
yeah, and I think that might have been what caused Duke to lose that game. In all honesty, I think if Riley Leonard doesn't get hurt, I think Duke wins that football game. Because I think with Riley Leonard, I believe that Duke is able to take advantage of those cracks that Notre Dame showed, and I think we could be talking about a different Victor right now.
Yeah. And then on the other side for Notre Dame, Sam Hartman, we've definitely seen much better performances at what he did. Now he didn't turn the ball over, but we have definitely seen Hartman not just this year, but in the past too, a much better version of him.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Sam Hartman, through and through, is a good QB. I mean, he is quite literally what you expect from a 6-year guy. Um, he's just a solid QB, a veteran QB. Definitely knows how to definitely knows how to lead that team, and he's doing a good job so far. 4-1 on the season so far, and they're on a good pace right now to potentially make the playoffs.
And Notre Dame, they have quite the tough matchup next week. What?
They do. But before we get to that, you know what's coming. It's a game from last week. We were both there. We both witnessed it, and we got to talk about it before we move on to this week, Parker. Kentucky 33, Florida 14. Did you expect that going into that week? And tell me why, or tell me why you did not.
No, I did not expect that at all. And you might even remember, I don't know if you do, I might be a fraud Kentucky fan because going into that game, I honestly didn't think we were going to win that game. Um, Now that all changed once I got into the stadium and just realized how loud that place was. That place was rocking for the first quarter. Absolutely. The amount of times that Florida either had a false start or they had to call a timeout because they didn't know what the play was. What there was a decent amount of them. That place absolutely was electric, and I wasn't expecting it to, especially because the way Kentucky has handled Florida over the past few years. That it's like this game doesn't mean as much as it did 2-3 years ago when we hadn't beat Florida in so many years. But now that we finally we've gotten that first win at Kentucky at Florida under our belt, you start to think you're like, okay, well maybe Kentucky's trying to move on to bigger and better things. No, no, we still hate Florida. We are all Gator haters, and we showed it Saturday. I think the reasoning we won that game was because Ray Davis might be one of, if not the best running back in the SEC.
Yeah, I mean, but before I speak my mind about this game, first off, Card Nation, I just want to apologize. I did go to a Kentucky game. I did travel to Lexington. I did step foot in Kroger Field, and I did watch this game live. So I want to sincerely apologize for my actions. I do not worry. I am still a diehard Louisville fan. I always will be. But when you love college football as much as I do, you can't help but go to a game like
And
this, and it paid off. And I gotta say, it fucking paid off. I mean, the game that I was able to witness live was an incredible game, and the people I met there. I mean, obviously they didn't know I was a Louisville fan, but everyone there just everyone there was so nice. I mean, if I'm being honest, it was a very fun experience, and I appreciate you, Parker, for taking me, man.
and I'm returning the favor as you're taking me to a Louisville game next week.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm paying it for.
This
Oh
week
yeah, this
now.
week. I'm sorry, this week. So I'm returning the favor, but I'm also excited for that one. But as far as the game
Yeah.
goes, what were you? What did you see? What caught your eye? The good and the bad for both Florida and Kentucky.
So, honestly, in my opinion, going into this game, I kind of thought you guys were going to win this game. Just because of the past couple years and the way you guys have handled Florida, like you said, winning these past 2 years, has it been more than 2 years that you guys have
We're
beat them? Or has it just been the last two?
it's three in a row now.
Okay, so yeah, so the last 2 years, the way you guys have handled Florida, going into this game, yes, I did expect a bit more of an angry Florida team coming into this game, thinking, they might want some revenge, especially with them being ranked now. But the way that you guys were able to run the ball and the way that Ray Davis was able to create big play after big play after big play on the ground, it was, it reminded me it reminded me of back home in the Ville watching Jawar Jordan run the ball. I mean, yeah, like you said, Ray Davis is an outstanding player, and he was a huge pickup in the offseason for you guys. When it happened, it's all I heard about from our friends that are Kentucky fans, because everyone and their mom was excited about him, and I see why now. I can tell you that I see why now, because he is an outstanding running back. He's an outstanding player, and I definitely agree that that's the reason why you guys won that game, is because you were able to expose their run defense early, and you were able to keep it going. What I did not like about that game is Devin Leary. I don't think that was his best performance, obviously. I would really hope that it's not his best performance, because he did not do good. I'm pretty sure he threw for less than 100 yards on the day. Granted, he didn't pass too much compared to how many times you guys ran the ball, but whenever he did pass the ball, it just kind of seemed like he was it kind of just seemed like he was a bit indecisive. He threw a couple passes in the dirt, or he kind of overthrew a couple passes, and a couple passes just, weren't really that great of passes, and he probably shouldn't have thrown them. I think Devin Leary could be a good QB. I think he can be a good QB. It's the same way with Jack Plummer and my feelings towards Jack Plummer. But if I had any negatives from that game, it would be Devin Leary, and my positives is the run game.
And also, I don't know. It's something that I'm excited for this week. Playing Georgia is our run game and our blocking, or run blocking, that good, or is Florida just nowhere near as good as anybody thought they were? Because I mean, even our backup, I don't even know how to pronounce his name, Sumo Carnegie. I butchered that. He ran for himself 32 yards off 4 attempts, right? So that the run game was just wide open all Saturday. And is that Kentucky's doing, or is that Florida's doing?
I mean, I think it's a little bit of both. I I coming into this Georgia game, um, I think you guys showed a lot of promise coming into this game against Georgia, and with the way Georgia has looked, I believe if you guys can light a little bit of a match per se under Devin Leary's butt, and get him to throw a little better, and if you can get Ray Davis to not do what he did against Florida, because I mean, shit, he almost broke the SEC record for rushing yards in a
Yeah, that's not
game.
gonna happen again.
So I mean, if he can do that again, I mean, you guys are probably going to beat Georgia, and you're probably going to beat them pretty handedly, I'd say, if that were to happen. But what I would say is, just if you guys can run the ball efficiently again, and if you can get the passing game going a bit better, because it's not like Devin Leary doesn't have the targets or the weapons that he needs. I mean, he has the guys that he needs to pass good. You guys have guys that can get separation and get open. He just needs to play a little better, in all honesty, in my opinion. And if he can do that, I mean, you guys will give Georgia some fits. I don't know if you guys will win. I don't know if you guys will lose either, though. But I can definitely see it being a good game if Devin Leary can perform
I
better.
know the writing is on the wall. You watch any fairy tale about a sports team, 5-0 versus 5-0. One team's not playing too good. The other team's playing some of the best ball of the season. One team, the team that's been playing good ball, hasn't beat the other team in so many years. Who knows how many years? The writing's on the wall, dude, for us to pull out this win. It is there. And I think that we can. I genuinely think we can do it. But I'm pretty sure all Kentucky fans say it every year. This year we might be able to do it. Sounding like Dallas Cowboys fans. We say that we got it until actually we kick the ball off, and then it's a whole different story. Um, for Florida, obviously they're definitely going to be looking to get back on track here. They got Vanderbilt this week, which I'd say is a pretty um, easy win for them. But then, I mean, they got at South Carolina, Georgia, Arkansas, and then at LSU, at Missouri, at home against Florida State. This could be a losing season for Florida this year. Multiple losses I could see coming their way if they don't figure things out.
Yeah, and they need to figure things out quickly because if they stay on track that they were on, if they stay on the same track that they were on in that Kentucky game, then yeah, they could have a negative win loss coming their way. So now that that is done with, actually, you want to talk a little bit about the Louisville NC
Of
State game?
course, yeah. Why not? Why not?
Should okay.
Um, let's
So
see.
I mean, so we got the dub 13-10. It was not the prettiest game by us. It was not the prettiest game by Jack Plummer. What it was an outstanding performance by our defense, and an outstanding performance by UNC transfer Cameron Kelly, forcing the a fumble that was very big on us being able to get a touchdown to tie the game, and then forcing I believe it was an inner. No, sorry, I don't. I'm gonna be honest. I don't fucking remember. It was either a QB pressure that forced the game clinching interception, or it was a big sack. It was one of the two, or it could have been a fumble. It was something. He did something other than what I already named. I just can't remember. I apologize. But a very sloppy game on offense. A very sloppy game. And a very sloppy game running the ball, which isn't something we've seen from Louisville thus far this season. I think a lot of people expected Jawar Jordan to have another big game in the run game, and that just did not happen. NC State planned very well against the run, and they were able to stop Jawar Jordan, and it just was not a good game offensively. It was a game of defense. It was a good old game of defense.
From what I that was another game I did not. I had it on, but I didn't really pay too much attention from it. But just kind of looking at the box score of the entire game, Jamari Thrash was not really targeted and involved in the offense as much as he has been the first four games. Um, I mean, he was targeted 5 times. I don't know how many of those were just like thrown at his feet or something like that, or they were just like actual passes that he just didn't catch. But I mean, when he gets the ball, he's gonna make a play. I think if the run game, like Jawar Jordan, he didn't really get it going. The run game was just dead all game long, and so you are forced to throw the ball, especially in the second half, being down 2 scores. I feel like Louisville needs to look to get a receiver as good as Thrash. You got to get him open. You got to find a way to get him involved in the play. And it didn't really. It doesn't seem like
I
that happened.
Yeah, I agree fully. Jamari Thrash is definitely by far the best weapon for Jack Plummer. But when you look at that box score, there is another name on there that I want to point out and give him his flowers. Chris Bell. He had a breakout game for us, and he has very good hands. He has very good jump ball ability. There was a play where he caught a touchdown pass in the end zone, but they ruled it incomplete. It definitely should have been a touchdown pass. He very clearly caught it and was able to keep possession of it. It is what it is. It's over. We got the dub. But regardless, Chris Bell, 3 receptions for 85 yards. 3 receptions for 85 yards and a touchdown.
Impressive.
That is a very good stat line. He did not break 100 yards, but 3 receptions for 85 yards is a good stat line. I don't care what anybody says. And that is a stat line that Chris Bell is able to produce every week if we can just spread the ball out a little bit more. When you look at the first 4 games of the season, there's been one name that Jack Plummer has gone to over and over and over again, and that's Thrash. But we have the weapons to where we can spread the ball out more, and he doesn't have to just tunnel vision on one receiver and throw 2 interceptions like he did, which all in all, Jack Plummer had an okay day. He went 21 for 35, 286 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. The 2 interceptions, all the interceptions that Jack Plummer is throwing this year are all so avoidable and so preventable. There was one interception in that NC State game where Jack Plummer kind of just threw it into the NC State player's hands, and I think that has to do with what I said with the tunnel visioning. With the tunnel visioning, if Jack Plummer can just look around to the other guys on the field, because when you look at the talent in our receiving room, you have Amari Huggins, Bruce, Jimmy Callaway, Kevin Coleman Jr., Jamari Thrash, Chris Bell. All five of those guys are very good and very capable receivers and are all capable of having a big game every week. And I think Jack Plummer just needs to work on spreading the ball more and just taking his time. I think he rushes a bit too much trying to get the ball out when he doesn't have to. And I think it really hurts him. And it hasn't hurt the team yet, but coming up soon when we talk about our opponent this week, it could definitely hurt us this week.
Yeah, and another thing. So we went to up to Atlanta to go watch Georgia Tech Louisville play. A very similar, I guess, just atmosphere in that game, right? A not so good first half, but you guys don't give up. You guys keep fighting and find a way to win. And like a baseball reference for my baseball people out there, very similar to what the Chicago Cubs did this year. Now we fell off the end of the season, but the reason we were in the hunt for a playoff spot is no matter who we played and how bad we were down, we were never out of that ball game. We always found a way to at least make it close, make it interesting, and give us a shot. And that this is the second game now where Louisville being down more than one score going into the second half, finding a way to win. And that's not something you teach. You can't teach that. It is just the absolute refuse to lose mentality that your team comes out with. And I'm overly impressed with what Louisville has done when facing adversity.
Yeah, and I think a big part of that, I think you can give a lot of credit to Jeff Brom and the staff that he's brought in, because, I mean, these guys are Louisville bred through and
Mm-hmm.
through. Grew up in Louisville, went to Louisville, both him and his brother. I know a lot of the staff went to Louisville, played for Louisville. It's just they understand what it means for this program and this school and what it means for the fans. They know what it means for the fans, and that's a big part in helping these guys stay motivated and never giving up, which I think is a huge thing you see in this year's team that you have not seen in past years with the past coaching staffs under Satterfield. The way that our guys can hold on to leads when they have to, or even performing better when they have to, as seen in the Georgia Tech game. Yeah, like you said, it's something you can't teach. It's something that comes from the coaches and giving the players the energy, hyping them back up when they're down at halftime. As far as morale goes, and it just helps the players hype each other up. You know, it helps the leaders of the team still have faith, and it helps the leaders of the team keep everyone else's morale up. And I it's something that I have loved seeing so far this season.
Which another thing, what a cool story it is when you really think about it. Just Jeff Brom was bred Louisville and becomes this successful coach, and where I know he came from Purdue, but no offense when I say this, he wanted to take on the project, which was the train wreck of the University of Louisville. And again, it was just an absolute train wreck, had no direction. He said, I'm going to take this on. This is my team. This is my school. And I'm going to turn it around. And year one, 5 games in, he's done his job because you can grab Louisville could have hired either like me or you, some bum off the street that is from Louisville to coach this team, and it would be a cool story. Oh, you got a Louisville kid that's coaching this team, but no, you find somebody like Jeff Brom who played at your school, was one of the best quarterbacks to go through your school, went on to the NFL, and then still comes back to his roots and coaches the team that built him to what he is. That's just such a cool story.
Yeah, and on top of that, who has also had a very impressive coaching career as a head coach at Purdue, and then at you might want to cover your ears for this one, Parker, but at WKU as well. Um, he's had a very good coaching career so far, and to see him being able to carry that over to Louisville is very nice.
Yeah, definitely, definitely, definitely. So after all these weeks games, the new top 25 came out. What is there anything that surprised you? You wish didn't happen, wish did happen? What are your feelings on the top 25 for this week?
So, nothing major really changed in the top 25, I don't believe, except
Some of the bottom
for
teams.
Kentucky and Louisville both entering the top 25. Kentucky being put in at 20 and Louisville being put in at 25. I think it is which by the way, I just want to say Fresno State is 5-0, and them being ranked 24 is kind of criminal because they've been playing pretty good this year. I know Fresno State's kind of like an under the radar team, but they've been playing really good
Oh, they've
this
been
year,
busted.
and they're undefeated. Yeah, and they're 5-0 and they're ranked 24. I think they could definitely be ranked higher, but um, like I said, the two major things that I noticed are both of our teams, Kentucky and Louisville, entering that top
Which
25.
is another cool story if you think about it. Not only are they both rivals, but they're Louisville and Kentucky. Like both of them 5-0, both of them entering the top 25 at the exact same time. I know I had a debate with one of our buddies. He's a Louisville fan about. He said that there's no way Louisville should be ranked or Kentucky should be ranked above Louisville. What do you say on that?
I know exactly who you're talking about, and I think you should take everything he says at face value because this man is a diehard Louisville fan. He will never ever support Kentucky, never verbally, never. I'm pretty sure he would never even mentally support them. Um, and I disagree. I fully disagree. When you look at the people you guys have played and you look at the people that Louisville have played, you guys already have a ranked win under your belt before being ranked, which is probably why you guys are ranked at 20 because Florida was ranked 22 when you guys beat them. You beat them, so now you're ranked 20, which makes sense to me. We haven't beat any ranked opponents. We haven't beat anybody near being ranked. So I think 25 is reasonable for Louisville. And with that being said, unless you have anything else to add,
I think one thing I think LSU kind of got disrespected in these rankings. I mean, you go into Ole Miss and you lose a shootout game and you drop 10 spots. You drop all the way to 23. You're damn near out of the top 25. A game that anybody would potentially lose. No, it doesn't matter what team it is. There's a good chance they lose that game. You drop them all the way down 10. I know it's their second loss of the season, but I feel like that's a little harsh. Uh, am I over exaggerating on that?
um, I don't know if you're over exaggerating, but I can see why they would drop that far because there's just so many teams that are undefeated, so many one loss teams that are going to be put over a two loss team, whether they're SEC or ACC, or Big Ten. You know what I mean? Like, there's just so many other teams that have better records and that are performing better than them that I think it warrants them being ranked that low.
And then another thing, last thing I want to add is if I was the one coming out with these rankings, it's not fair to Georgia, but I think just from the way they've played, they haven't lost yet, obviously, but just the way they played compared to the other teams, my top three would go number one, Michigan, number two, Texas, then Georgia at number three. I think that Michigan and Texas both have played much better ball. Um, Especially Texas, obviously beating Alabama. Now Michigan, they also haven't really played anybody the same as Georgia, really, but I think overall, if you're just talking about what this season has produced so far after the first 5 games, Michigan and Texas have both played leaps and bounds better ball than Georgia has.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So, off of that, like I was saying earlier, a couple minutes ago, Louisville, I believe, being put at 25 is fine. It's completely fine. Listen, Cards Nation, we're in the top 25. Be happy. I know some of you might think that we should be 23, 22, or maybe above Kentucky in the top 20. But listen, we're in the top 25 for the first time in a while. Be happy about it. And just cherish it because it could be gone after just 1 week. But after me saying that, Louisville has a unbelievable opportunity here to take a massive jump in the polls if they can beat Notre Dame. And same with Kentucky. If Kentucky can beat number 1 Georgia, and if Louisville can beat number 10 Notre Dame, you might see some scrambling going on in those rankings after this
Oh
week.
yeah, and I also think just because looking at the teams that are above Louisville, even if Louisville loses, now if it's a complete dominating game by Notre Dame, like they just absolutely run Louisville out of their own stadium, that's one thing. But if it is a close competitive game, I mean LSU and Missouri play each other. Those are both 21 and 23. If LSU loses that game, they'll be 3-3 on the season. Tennessee, they play Alabama this week at Alabama. That could be a loss. I mean, I think there's a really good chance that if Louisville actually proves something against Notre Dame, that even in a loss, they're still ranked.
I agree. I agree. And I think there's a possibility that they could move up off of a loss depending on what they show.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. And like you said, I know Fresno. Well, you said Fresno State. I mean, I don't know how good. I mean, Wyoming. They play Wyoming this week at Wyoming, which I'm sure will be a tough game. Wyoming's 4-1 on the season. They could potentially lose. I mean, there's a world where out of the 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, only one team wins, and that would be the winner of the Missouri LSU game. Obviously, there's a world where 4 of those or 5 of those top 16 or bottom 6 teams all lose. Louisville, there's a good chance where
Right.
Louisville jumps up, um, even up to somewhere like 23, 22 with a loss.
Yeah. And I think it's the same with Kentucky. If you guys lose to Georgia, but you still show something, I think there's a world where you guys jump in the rankings as well.
Agreed. Agreed. So I guess that this jumps into a perfect segue um, going into this week. Got some really, 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 really fun games that I'm looking forward to. The only thing sucks is that if I do go to this Louisville game, I'm going to miss all this phenomenal college football being played. But it should be worth it, right, Chad? Josh?
I sure hope so. I think this game will be a good one. I really do. I can sniff an upset in the air, but I can't fully like smell the scent. Like it's like a distant scent that I can't fully grasp what it is, but I think it's an upset. You know what I mean?
I know that feeling, and I would love to say that I'm with you as far as a Kentucky standpoint, but I'm like, I see the upset already written out. Like I can already see the articles that are coming out. Kentucky, like I said earlier, they are just set up right now for such a storyline upset win at Georgia. I hope that we don't come out and go back to good old Kentucky football and just completely shit the bed when it matters the most. Because where it is right now, not only is just like the storyline, the experts, they're not even giving us a chance. Georgia's a 14 and a half point favorite. They think it's going to be a dog walk for Georgia. I'm like, dude.
And I mean, uh, like if if you guys lose this game, You can't let this ruin your season because you guys are not out of it if you guys lose to number one Georgia. And a lot of people can look at last season and say that the same thing happened after you guys played Georgia. Everything went kind of downhill, but I don't really think it was that game that did it. I think it was the
It
Ole
was
Miss game that kind
definitely
of
the
did
Ole
it.
Miss game, 100%.
Yeah, I think it was kind of the Ole Miss game that did that. But this season, with how good you guys are doing so far, if you guys lose this game, do not get discouraged about it. I mean, it's the number one team in the nation according to the polls. Do not get discouraged if you lose this game. I don't think you guys will as a fan base. I don't think you guys will. Um, and it's the same with Louisville. Louisville fans, do not get discouraged if we lose to Notre Dame because there are more games later on in the season where we can still be ranked and still move up in the rankings and potentially still make the ACC championship that I know a lot of people kind of think we can make. Realistically, do I think we can make it? Maybe. We have a decent chance. I need to see some better performances from our QB. But we still play Miami later on in the season. We still play Duke. Like if both Kentucky and Louisville lose this weekend, just hold on. Just hold on. Stay on the bus ride. I promise there's more chances later on in the season. If we lose this week, it's not over.
Agreed. And I hate that because us as a Kentucky, not just football but also with basketball, we've seen it time and time again where Kentucky fans they give up hope so fast and they're so quick. You saw it with Will Levis last year, and I know he didn't play as good as he did the first year that he was at Kentucky. He has a bad game. Kentucky loses. They're like they're off with Will Levis's head. They want him done. They're saying there's articles being written why Kentucky should bench Will Levis. I hope the same thing doesn't happen because I know as a Kentucky fan and in social media and just kind of hearing what other Kentucky fans have to say, we are so hyped for this game because this is one of the best shots we have at beating Georgia. That if we do lose, especially if it's a blowout, even if it's a blowout, then we'll really be discouraged. I feel like we get in this mindset every year where if we don't win the big one, then the season's a failure. And I just don't think we're not there yet, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, but both teams, both Louisville and Kentucky, I think are on the way there. Um, but Parker, off of that note, let's go ahead and get into some match predictions for this week. Talk about some big matchups, and then let's go ahead and update our playoff predictions or give our playoff predictions actually, because we haven't given them yet. And then yeah, let's and then we can I guess wrap it up after
Okay,
that.
that works for me.
Alrighty, so the first game I want to point out, you might question me off of this one, but I want to point out Maryland at Ohio State. Um, I know Ohio State beat Notre Dame, but other than that game, I haven't seen too much from Ohio State. But I've seen a lot from Tua's little brother. I think his name is Talia. Talia Tua
Tungavaloa.
or Talia Tago. Yeah, Talia Tagovailoa. Who's the QB1 at Maryland? He's had a very good season. And I think there's a potential upset brewing over there. Maryland's 5-0 right now,
And
and and they're performing very well. And I think Maryland could potentially upset Ohio State in that game.
Maryland's another team that has just dog walked anybody that has tried to step in front of them. What they did to Michigan State at Michigan State is absurd. They only let Michigan State put up 9 points against them at home. At Michigan State, they only put up 9 points. That's embarrassing. That is embarrassing.
Yeah,
And just I don't know
yeah,
how this team's not ranked. Really, I think this 100% should be two top 25 teams playing each other Saturday. Um, Now,
I
I
agree.
think Ohio State will win this game. I think that they're just a better overall rounded team. They can be shaky sometimes, as we saw against Notre Dame. Notre Dame had plenty of chances to win that game, and they didn't. Not putting 11 men out on the field, but I think Notre Dame or I'm sorry, Ohio State has the edge here. But I think it's going to be a close one for sure.
Mm-hmm. The next game, literally the next one right after that, LSU at Missouri, and I think that will be a good game as well. I think with what Missouri showed against Kansas State, that was a good Missouri team. This is a good Missouri team against a honestly quite lackluster LSU team, and I think it could go either or. I'm not going to give my prediction yet. We'll save that for the quick fire
Mhm.
predictions. But I think that'll be a
Oh
good
yeah,
game.
this is I'm excited. This game's at 12 p.m., so I'll be able to watch this game before we head out to LNN. But
Oh
this
yeah,
is one of um probably I'm looking at all the games. This is my third game, the third most excited game I'm looking for this week is just these two SEC teams battling out. More than likely, loser is going to drop out of the top 25. I would say, just because how just stacked the bottom of the top 25 is and how many teams are trying to get in. I am really
yeah,
looking forward to seeing this game full play out because also we know what LSU's about. We know we've seen them at their best. We've also seen them at their worst already. Missouri, we haven't seen too much of Missouri. We they haven't played anybody besides Kansas State. But you saw what happened to Kansas State. They're not that good. Um, it's going to be a true test for Missouri. We're actually going to see if Missouri football is back.
yeah. And then what like you mentioned with the time slots with these games. I mean, we've got a good slate of games before we head to LNN. Um, and just off of that note, we can just go ahead and jump into the next game, the Red River Shootout, Oklahoma versus Texas. That could be a hell of a game. And we haven't seen too much of Oklahoma as far as competition goes, but we have seen what Texas offers against competition, and boy, is that a scary team.
Yes, yep. I think this is the breakout party for Dylan Gabriel if I've ever seen one. This is for to finally put his name out there and be like, "Yo, you guys want to talk about Caleb Williams? You guys want to talk about Sam Hartman? Um, what's his name for Georgia? I'm blanking. Yeah,
Carson Beck,
I think this is a real breakout performance for Gabriel to finally show what he is about and what he's going to be moving forward in the next few years, whether that's at Oklahoma or in the NFL.
for sure, for sure. And then, you mentioned a few names there. Even against the QB he's playing against, Quinn Ewers. A lot of people mention Quinn Ewers as one of the great QBs. If he can go in there and perform better than Quinn Ewers, I mean, phew.
Agreed, very much agreed. So very much agreed. So another sneaky game. Um, we kind of already talked about it a little bit. Alabama, Texas A&M. Um, are you expecting the spread's one? It's Alabama's favored by one. Are you expecting this to be a blowout?
I am not. Only because of how inconsistent Alabama's offense is, and then how kind of injury ridden the Texas A&M offense is. I don't think there definitely could be a lot of points scored. I don't think there will be. I think it'll be a game of whose defense is better. Um, but I still think it will be a good game just because it always is.
Agreed. I very much agreed. So, let's see. Anything else that really kind of stands out?
Other than our two local games, there's one more game I want to point out, which is Arkansas and Ole Miss. And the only reason I want to point that game out, I know Arkansas isn't ranked, and I know Ole Miss is ranked 16th. But if you look at the history books and you look at like even the past 5 years, that game has been one of the best games every year, the whole season. I mean, they've had multiple games in the past 5 seasons that have gone into multiple OTs, have gone down to the wire. I think that game is a potential game of the year
Oh
candidate.
yeah, especially with just how lights out offense Mississippi is. Jackson Dart is so much fun. He's a very fun quarterback to watch, especially for he's not getting much. Not many people are talking about him. He is lighting up teams. Besides the Alabama game where they only put up 10 points, uh, he's just a fun guy. He's a fun guy to watch, just running offense. And Mississippi can put up a lot of points in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, Ole Miss has looked quite good this season so far, other than that Alabama game, like we
Mm-hmm.
mentioned. But Parker, to end us off here, let's do some quick fire predictions for the week,
All right,
if you are
I'm ready when
ready.
you are.
Alrighty, starting us off with the first game of the week, Maryland at Ohio State.
Ohio State for sure.
I am also taking Ohio
Which
State.
really quick, I'm sorry. I'm
Second
sorry to
game.
interrupt you.
Oh,
I just
no,
saw
no, no.
this. We were just talking like Maryland. They're undefeated, right? Do you know what the spread is for
Right.
that game?
No, I'm assuming it's probably pretty big, though,
Ohio
in favor of
Ohio
Ohio
State is
State.
favored by 20 points. That is absurd for a undefeated team playing another undefeated team. And Ohio State's coming off a bye week.
No love to
No, not
Maryland.
at all.
No love to
All right, you can
Maryland.
continue now.
All right, next game, LSU at Missouri.
I'm going to go LSU in a very, very tight one.
I am going to go Missouri because I think that home field advantage, and I think with how good Missouri has done this year, I think that stadium is going to be rocking, and I think it's going to get into LSU's head, and I think Missouri is going to take one at home.
All right, all right.
All right, the next one, we got the Red River rivalry game, Oklahoma at Texas.
Unfortunately, I think this is actually going to be a blowout game by Texas.
I agree.
Uh,
I think Texas is just too good for Oklahoma. I have not seen. Excuse me. I just haven't really seen anything that impressive from Oklahoma to warrant me saying that they would beat Texas.
Correct. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna go Texas, and I don't think it's gonna be close as well. The next one, we've got a Pac-12 matchup: Washington State at UCLA.
Sneaky upset here. LSU's actually, or no, I'm sorry. UCLA is actually favored by 3. I'm going to hop on the bandwagon. I'm going to take the upset here. I'm going to take UCLA.
I agree with the fact that I think it's going to be a competitive, close game, but I'm going to take Washington State because I think Washington State is actually very good, considering they're one of 2 teams that are just getting left standing in the Pac-12. Their QB is outstanding. Cameron Ward is just so good, and seeing what he did last week, I just think that team is or just him, honestly, I think he's really
Agreed.
good. All right, next up, Syracuse traveling to Chapel Hill, taking on UNC.
Another game that is, I think it's going to tell a lot about a team. I think this is actually going to be a pretty good test for North Carolina. I'm going to pick North Carolina here, just because I don't know too much about Syracuse. But from what I have seen from them, is they're really not a pushover team. They're not a team that you can just dog walk right over.
Yeah, I'm gonna take UNC as well. Syracuse tough loss to Clemson last week, but I also think this could be a close game. But yeah, I'm gonna take North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Next one, Alabama, Kyle Field against Texas A&M.
I wish this game was a night game. It's another game that just like the atmosphere would be so much better in a night game. I'm going to take Alabama.
Agree.
I think, like you said earlier, it's not going to be a high scoring game whatsoever. It's going to be a very low scoring game. And I think Alabama's defense is just going to edge out at the end.
So I'm gonna disagree again. I'm gonna take Texas A&M. I think this is Texas. I think this is A&M's biggest matchup so far. And this is a big game. This could honestly tell us who's gonna win the SEC West. Or no, sorry, is it? This
No,
is
it's
the
the
East,
West.
right?
It's the
SEC
West.
East. Oh, okay, yeah. I think this could tell us who's gonna be traveling to Atlanta
Oh, 100%.
for the SEC championship as the winner of this game.
100%.
And I'm taking A&M.
Nice, nice, nice. I like it. I like the disagreement.
Next one here, I don't think we'll be disagreeing too much. We got Virginia Tech at Florida State.
Yeah, Florida State.
Yeah,
Virginia
Florida
Tech
State.
might get shut out.
Next one here. All right. I don't expect you to favor yourself here, but I wouldn't be surprised either. We got Kentucky traveling to Athens, Georgia, taking on the Georgia Bulldogs.
I mean, I can't I can't with a good conscience not pick Kentucky here. I am picking Kentucky to pull off the upsets of all upsets. I'm going Kentucky. I'm going Kentucky, and you know what? I'll actually say this: I'm going Kentucky, and they're going to win by 14 or more.
Wow. All right. All right. We're getting big out here. All right. So on the next one, I'm
Well,
sure
hey,
we'll.
hey,
I'm taking. I'm
okay, I
taking
was about to
Georgia.
say,
By the
hang
way,
on.
I'm taking Georgia. So and I'm sure on this next one we'll flip. We got Notre Dame coming to Louisville, Kentucky, to L&N Stadium, to a stadium that is apparently sold out against Louisville.
I want to hear what you guys say first.
I think it will be a close game. I mentioned this earlier in the episode. I think Notre Dame has showed some cracks in their game, and I think if Louisville can prepare for it, and I think if Louisville can take advantage of those cracks in Notre Dame's game, I think Louisville can pull out the win here, and I'm gonna say that they do, and I'm gonna take Louisville here at home.
I'm picking Notre Dame. If I had to make a prediction on how this game is going to play out, I think it's going to be the absolute opposite of what we talked about earlier. How Louisville has that kind of like refuse to lose attitude, and they never give up. They have these second half comebacks. I think Louisville comes out and punches Notre Dame right in the mouth, and they might even have like a 10-point lead at halftime. But I think Notre Dame, I just feel like they're gonna end up having too much star power. I think they're just talent's a little bit better than Louisville. I'm going to pick Notre Dame here.
Understandable, understandable. The next one here, we got Arkansas traveling to Ole Miss.
Ole Miss, pretty convincingly, I would say.
I agree. I don't think it'll be convincingly though, just because of the historical value of how close that game typically
Mhm.
is. But I am gonna go Ole Miss though.
Okay, okay.
All right, these next few I think we'll probably agree on pretty unanimously. But we got Michigan traveling to Minnesota.
Michigan.
Michigan. We got Georgia Tech traveling to Miami.
Miami. Obviously ever since we went up to Atlanta to watch Georgia Tech play. I haven't been paying attention to them. I guess they're not very good. I see they got a record of 2-3.
Yeah, they have not been doing good since that game.
Wow.
Yeah, correct.
But yeah, I'm gonna go Miami here.
Yeah, I'm going Miami. We got Fresno State traveling to Wyoming.
Just for the fun of it, I'm going Wyoming.
Okay, I'm going Fresno State. All right, we got Oregon State going to Cal.
Oregon State. Oregon State. I don't know anything about California.
I'm taking Oregon State. All right, last one here, Parker. We got Arizona traveling to USC.
Arizona. I'm just playing. No, USC. Dominating performance.
I'm going USC as well.
Man, yeah, we had a couple of disagreements here. I'm gonna have to after Saturday. I'm gonna have to tally everything up, and we're gonna keep a ongoing record and see who wins at the end of the season.
For sure. Hopefully we can both be hopefully we can both be over 500
Yeah.
though. That'd be nice.
If we're not over 500, that's bad, especially because all these easy ass games.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be pretty embarrassing.
But yeah, so yeah, Saturday's
But
gonna be fun. We got a lot of football to watch. If you are a sports fan, you got the MLB playoffs going on, NBA preseason, NFL, college football is the main thing though, man. There's so much fun going on with college football. A lot of good games this week.
it's a fun season so far. It's a fun season so far.
And now we could come next podcast about college football. Our attitudes might be a little bit different, but yeah, man, I'm excited for Saturday.
I am as well. I am as well. But that's gonna do it from me and Parker. We appreciate you guys for listening to the episode. We will have a NFL episode, hopefully out maybe on Saturday. Maybe we might wait until like early next week. It just kind of depends on our schedule, especially with the college football games going on. But we appreciate you guys for listening. Parker, you got anything to say to the people?
No, no, not at all. Actually, I don't. I don't have anything.
All right, thank you guys. We'll see
Peace.
you guys.